Welcome. Welcome to Stateline Adventist Church. We also welcome you who are watching by television and social media. We welcome you here. And just in case you're wondering if you need a place to worship, you are welcome to come in here as well and join us in person as we worship the Lord. Today is a high day in Zion. That's when the Lord God is here. That's when heaven and earth meet. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome again, and we also welcome our speaker this morning, Dr. Tom Evans, as he presents to us a wonderful message. Those of you who missed the early morning service, you indeed did miss a treat, the pursuit of one. So we're looking forward again to hearing that one more time.
Riverside Farm is an ideal location. It's right on the Kafui River. There's bananas growing here. It is an oasis. But all around, surrounding Riverside Farm, is abject poverty. You go to these villages and you see people gather around a water pump to get water, to be able to carry for miles sometimes so that they can simply have water to drink. You recognize that there's food scarcity, just extreme poverty surrounding all around Riverside. But there's a commitment here to make a difference, to transform these communities, and much of that is done through education. And that's why the schools being located here on this campus, in this oasis, are so important to the surrounding community. The challenge is gaining access to the amazing education that is available at Riverside, because only the students that are within walking distance could actually attend here. And so as we began to assess this challenge, we recognized the importance of being able to provide transportation for children to be able to attend school here.
So we partner with Child Impact on the school bus. It sits 38 people, and it's really great because we have a community that's about 30 minutes away, where children are still walking more than 2 hours to come to get on the bus and get here. If they were to do that without a bus, it just would be out of reach for them completely. It's a community that's very underserved for education. Many of the kids having really no educational opportunity at all.
As I visited the surrounding villages around Riverside Farm, it's very clear that walking from those locations is not a possibility. And yet it's only a 15-minute bus ride. Trying to walk, the distance, the heat, the busy roads, the vulnerabilities that children have, all of these things make it impossible for them to have that as an option. But when we can pick them up at a bus stop, and they can, I rode a bus going to school, and so when we have that option available for them, all of a sudden the possibilities open up in terms of children that have access to this school.
Yeah, so most of the kids that we deal with coming from the community with the bus would either be ending their life out cutting charcoal in the bush, which is really an amazing thing because you're actually doing more work than the calories they can afford to buy. It's just a way to extend life, to live a little longer, but really not a way of sustaining themselves. So they'd either be doing that, or they would be trying to find other ways to raise money, whether that's trafficking or some other way. So because there's just really no opportunity. The only other thing that they are able to do is sell stolen coal from the community, and so it's an interesting opportunity to help.
I really see sponsorship as a entry-level commitment, kind of a minimum threshold that I think every person should consider doing. At $1.06 a day for a child to be able to go to school, to be able to have a meal, this is a minor commitment for most American families or Canadian families or any first world family. That's a minimum kind of commitment that I think any individual should consider. And there's some individuals who say, I can sponsor more than one child, 2 or 5 or 10 or even 30. And if that's a possibility, from my experience of seeing this firsthand and the difference it makes in the life of a child, I want to encourage everybody who's watching this video to consider such a commitment as a minimum way to be involved. We recognize that with so many children needing access to education, that there was an opportunity here to expand the primary school. By adding 5 buildings to the primary school, that's grades 1 through 6, we were able to double the capacity for the number of students who can attend, from 360 students to 720 students. Every child that is able to attend here represents a potential transformation for the community that they've come from, because now they were going to be able to not only go to primary school here, but also to go to secondary school to learn skills that are taught here on Riverside campus that will be able to help transform their families and their villages. I had an amazing 3rd grade teacher by the name of Mrs. Massey, and I think she goes to church here if I'm not mistaken. But I feel badly for any teacher I had before 4th grade. In 4th grade, I made a decision to follow Jesus and be baptized, and I changed my behavior just a bit. It actually changed quite a lot. And I'm going to share with you what happened when I was in the 1st grade at Rogers Elementary School. This experience has shaped my life in so many ways. We were going on a field trip. Do you like to go on field trips? You know, it's a day where you're outside of the classroom and studying in the books and reading and all these things, and you're going on some kind of adventure. Well, the adventure for that day was a field trip where we walked to the Walla Walla College, now University campus. And at that time on the campus, there was a fountain. And I really like water and fountains, and I especially like to see what's in the water, because I want to see, what do I want to see in the water? Are there any fish swimming around in the water? So I was excited about that, and so I immediately ran over to this fountain on the campus, and I noticed that indeed there were fish swimming around inside the pool of water. As the water cascaded down into this pool there, I was able to walk around the edge and observe the fish and just enjoy it until I got to the point where there was a boy standing in my way. What should I do? What do you think I should do? I want to walk all the way around. I don't want to be interrupted. I want to continue walking and seeing the fish. What do you think I should do? What are my options?
You could just shove them into there. I wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't do it, but I could just shove them in, huh? Okay, you wouldn't do that one. Okay, that's an option, right?
Quickest way to do it.
That's the quickest way to get where I want to go. Okay, you're very astute. You know, I could step out and go around him, right? That's one option. Is that okay? I could say, excuse me, please. I would like to continue walking through. That's kind of rude, but I could do that. But I did the most rude thing. Like you said, I pushed him in. He thought he was going to drown. Everybody came running from everywhere. He didn't realize he could just stand up easily. But people started glaring at me. Oh, they were mad at me. And somebody ran to get him a towel. Everybody was helping him, and I kind of tried to slip away a little bit. And the next thing I knew, a phone call was made to my home. And my mom was asked to come pick me up. They said, I'm done with school for the day. So she picked me up and took me home, but what was I worried about? What's going to happen when my dad gets home, right? What will my dad do about this terrible decision I made to push the boy in the water? I got home, and my dad didn't say anything about it. I was like shocked. I was like, what happened? I'm not going to get in trouble at all for this? So finally, it was time to go to bed. I got in my onesie pajamas, and I hopped in bed, and lights out, and I'm starting to go to sleep, and all of a sudden, the light comes on, and I see my dad starting to walk toward the bed. Suddenly, he picked me up, and he started carrying me through the house. I thought I knew where he might be going. He continued walking out through the backyard, out to where the animals stayed. And I knew that where the animals stayed, there was a bathtub filled with water and green algae, and there was a little fish that swam in that bathtub. And my dad took me, and he dunked me down into the water, and he pulled me back up. He hugged me. I was crying. He carried me back inside, and my mom was in on all of it. She had a bathtub full of warm, clean water, ready for me to take a bath. But my dad said something to me on the way back inside. He said, "Tommy, I want you to know how that other boy felt today." That other boy didn't come to school planning to be pushed into the water. In fact, the lesson my dad wanted to teach me was to treat others the way that I want to be treated. I think it's called the golden rule in the Bible, right? Do unto others as you want them to do to you. And I like to put it this way too. We need to learn and know what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. How do they feel? What are they going through? How can we make them have a better day instead of a worse day? And so today I'm going to be talking about some children that live halfway around the world. And their lives are very different than the lives that you and I live right here in America. And I think it should matter to us. We should try to put our feet into their shoes and to think about what is it that they're experiencing and how can we make their life better. I think it does matter what happens halfway around the world because we're all God's children. Thank you for listening so well. You can go back to your seats.
Would you turn your Bibles with me to Matthew, the 18th chapter, and follow with me as I read verses 5 through 6 and verses 10 through 14. Once again, that's Matthew, the 18th chapter, and beginning at the 5th verse through the 6th and verses 10 through 14. The word of God read thusly, "And whosoever welcomes such a child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be thrown in the depths of the sea." Verse 10, "See that you do not despise one of these little ones. For I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep, and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hill and go to look for the one that wanders off? And if he finds it, truly, I tell you, he is happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any one of these little ones should perish."
Thank you, ladies, for sharing your talents with us so beautifully. I want to welcome my classmates from the class of 83 from Melton Stateline Seventh-day Adventist School. That was our graduating year. Randy Ginter is here, and Craig Fisher, and Terry Keene-Kuntz was part of that class in the earlier days as well. And I believe there may be some others here as well, but we're planning to get together over this weekend. And I also looked out and I saw Lauren Dickinson. That's a little intimidating for me. I was a theology major and a speech communications major at Walla Walla and had plenty of classes from him. I've run into him from time to time over the years. And I've now trained many pastors, and they probably feel intimidated when I'm sitting in the audience. So it is a blessing to be here with all of you today here at the Stateline Seventh-day Adventist Church. Welcome to the online audience as well. The title of my message is The Pursuit of One. And I want to begin by sharing this.
Hey. I'm looking for a domestic worker.
Okay.
I prefer a 12-year-old girl.
12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
You have cash?
I have cash.
Okay.
100 USD.
All right. Let's see here. That's actually a little bit much. I have some.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have some change for you here.
Wow.
There's $10 change. I hope that works out for you.
That's fantastic.
The average price of a slave today is $90. And domestic worker is a front for human trafficking. I have here with me 7 pounds of gummy bears. This is not to pass around today, nor was it for the children's story, but this represents to me an illustration of a case that we know of where a girl was traded to be a child bride for 7 pounds of candy. I have a quiz for us to help us stay engaged and want you to listen carefully for the answers. What is meant by a large millstone? Is that too heavy for a person to lift, turned by a donkey, a stone made of granite, or used in strongman competitions? Second question here. Who are the Dalits? The broken and scattered, those seen as the lowest class, people given the worst jobs, or the untouchables? Third question. What is the main way that traffickers trick young girls in developing countries? Telling them they will be a model, giving them cash, offering a fake job in another country, or pretending to be a friend on social media? Final question. Where is Child Impact's secret project? North Korea, Iraq, Ukraine, or you can find out this afternoon at 3 o'clock. There is more slavery today than at any time in Earth's history. Approximately 50 million slaves. Now I want you to finish this phrase for me. Out of sight. That is the challenge when it comes to human trafficking, because it is an underground crime that very few of us ever see taking place. But just because it is out of sight does not mean that it doesn't exist. And I hope today to open our eyes a little bit more to the challenge, this global scourge on society that we need to be responding to. There are 150 countries that still have slavery today, with India topping the list, having 20 million slaves. That's 2 out of every 5 is in the country of India, the largest, in terms of population, the largest country in the world. Human trafficking is the fastest growing and second largest criminal industry. So these are some of the statistics that are absolutely troubling, and I believe that we need to be paying attention to. It is one thing to raise awareness. Some of you have watched the movie The Sound of Freedom. Would just raise your hand up if you've watched this movie, The Sound of Freedom. True story about human trafficking. There's an excellent solution at the end where some girls and boys are rescued. And this movie itself that came out last July raised a lot of awareness regarding the topic of human trafficking, but what does awareness accomplish? Awareness by itself accomplishes very little. It's a first step to making a difference. So my hope, my prayer is that today we can move from awareness to taking some kind of action. That's what I hope we're going to be able to do. Jesus' disciples were asking a question about greatness again. They always seemed to be interested in who was at the top, who was the GOAT, the greatest of all time, who was at the apex. Jesus, instead of answering that question, dismantled their pretentious posturing, and he invited a young child to stand in their midst. Jesus always had time for children. When others pushed them away, he welcomed them. Now he answers their question. He says if they want to be great, they must become like a child. He then offers one of the greatest blessings, followed by a scathing curse, perhaps using the strongest language that he ever uttered. I'd like to read the first part of that verse, invite a couple of individuals from overseas to share this verse from their perspective.
And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me.
If anyone calls one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble,
it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned into the depths of the sea.
Well, this is probably not a verse that you've heard preached on very often, but this is the one we're going to tackle today. And it begins with an amazing and beautiful blessing. Let's read it together. Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. I grew up hearing about the caste system in India. Did any of you have that experience as well? You're familiar with this concept of caste? And who is known as the lowest caste? What are they called? The untouchables, right? This is the one we're most familiar with. It's a hard concept for us to wrap our minds around of how somebody can be considered untouchable. This group is classified today in India as Dalits, which literally means broken and scattered. How would you like to be referred to as broken and scattered? They do the jobs that no one else wants to do. In visiting India, I did not have this classification of people in my mind. Little did I realize that we had walked right into a community of individuals that represent this outcast group. I have a short video to share, and I want to see if you can identify how much attention we paid to this idea of this group of individuals being untouchable. 5 years ago, Child Impact launched a tailoring project in the Vizag slum. Life in the slum pushes individuals to the extremes of poverty. And some women end up making a choice to be involved in sex work simply to survive. And so this tailoring program was initiated in an effort to help them have another option in terms of the choices in front of them. We want these women to face a choice when it comes to these difficulties in their lives. Some of them may lose a spouse, they may have some kind of tragedy that's happened in their life, and we want them to have a career that they can fall on, that is a respectable one, that they can be proud of, that can provide for the needs of themselves and their family and their children. In America, we have a phrase, growing up on the wrong side of the tracks. And for these women in the Vizag slums, their address becomes a stigma. It becomes a discrimination point. So when they apply for a job and the address is identified, they have no chance to get that job. In fact, people won't even go there. They won't even touch them. And so the Vizag slum has this aura about it of negativity. And so it's so important in this location to have a beacon of hope, an oasis where these women can begin to find dignity in the work that they do, when they can be cared for, where they can be even loved. A baby is the most vulnerable in society. For survival, they need care, constant care. And so for this young girl that I got attached to in this very short time we spent together, I got to hold her quite a bit. And I look back and reflect and think, what will her future be? Will she have an opportunity for education? And I believe the answer to that question is yes. Because there's a presence right there in the slum, because this school is there, this preschool, she will have an education, she will have good nutrition, she will have teachers that care about her. And eventually she'll have a sponsor who will help her pursue her education. And so I'm excited that the answer about her future is a positive one, that she will be able to flourish because Child Impact is present in the Vizig slum. As I describe some of our projects in countries where extreme poverty exists, I often hear the question about this prostitution and whether women are choosing that lifestyle. A choice means that there are options. And I found by visiting with these women that they really don't even know that they have another choice. For them, it's the only option. It's the only path that they know for survival. So these women want to be free of sexual exploitation. This is not something that they would choose for themselves. It's something they feel pushed into simply to survive. And so when they're given an opportunity, when finally they truly have a choice because somebody has stepped in to intervene, they will take hold of that and they will run with it. It's interesting when we're filming, sometimes what we capture, you may have seen a motorbike that pulled up and there was a lady that met him. This is where prostitution's taking place in broad daylight. And so as I was there holding this baby, what really she kind of wrapped me around her little finger was that others wanted to hold her and she would not go to them. My wife is very good with little children and she wouldn't go to my wife. And then her own mom came to hold her and take her back and she hung on to me. And I began to really reflect deeply and think, what is her future going to be? What will that look like? And as I begin to understand a little further about the cost of education there in this community, you will notice at the end of the video there were a couple of blurred faces. This particular lady has been prostituting herself to pay for her son's Adventist education. I had never heard of such a thing. This is the ultimate sacrifice, isn't it? She's doing this because she wants something better for her son than what she has had. She had joined our tailoring program, but was concerned that she would not earn enough money to take care of her and her son and pay for his education. She wanted to change careers, but she didn't know how she could do that without letting go of this dream that she had for her son and his life. So we visited her there in her home, and I assured her from this day forward, your son will be part of our sponsorship program at Child Impact. There will be a sponsor who will step up and take care of his education. I went back then to the rest of the ladies there in the tailoring class, and I said, if any of you want to send your children to have an Adventist education, we will support them through our sponsorship program. So we offer this tailoring project there in the slums. About 20 individuals indicated an interest. We had room for 10. We've been repeating this class for a number of years now. And so now the class I saw my last visit, they've graduated. Another class has now signed up. But in this class of those that were registered while I was there, the ones that I met, they shared at the time of registration that since Child Impact became involved in the slum with the preschool and the tailoring program, that there has been a 50% reduction in prostitution. This was extremely rewarding, but it also spurred me on because I want to see that number drop to 0. We want to keep offering individuals a different path, an alternative. And we believe that that is going to totally transform this slum. In fact, I met this young lady who did have a sponsor. She didn't end up in this path of prostitution. She had the path, the option of education, because somebody said, I will sponsor this young lady. And today she's a nurse working at a nearby hospital. So sponsorship totally transforms lives. Jesus moves from the blessing in this verse that we just read to the warning. Jesus reserves his strongest words of judgment for those who mistreat and abuse children. Let's read this verse together. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. We know that a millstone was used to grind wheat into flour. And of course, right here in this valley, there's plenty of wheat fields. I drove past, even coming to church here this morning. The average millstone weighed somewhere between 25 and 300 pounds. But this verse is different because there's an adjective in front of the word millstone. And what is that word? Large. Well, if this word was literally translated, it means turned by a donkey. So the literal translation of this verse is, it would be better for them to have a turned by the donkey millstone, or turned by a donkey millstone hung around their neck. Well, how large was that millstone? Up to 1,000 pounds. The average man can lift between 135 and 175 pounds. In the grand finale for the world's strongest man competition, Atlas stones are lifted over a bar that is 4 feet high. The fifth and largest stone weighs 440 pounds. So the type of millstone that Jesus is describing here is more than twice the weight of the largest stone that the strongest man in the world can lift. The analogy is obvious, with language more intense than when clearing the temple. Jesus unequivocally states that the punishment for a person who harms a child should be greater than a turn by the donkey millstone pulling them to the depths of the sea. I'm going to share a couple statistics with you that should evoke righteous indignation. Before the age of 18, 1 out of every 4 girls and 1 out of every 6 boys is sexually abused. For some of you sitting here today, this is not a statistic, this was your reality. And I recognize that giving a statistic like this can be a trigger for some people because of the trauma that you have been through growing up in this broken world. Tragically, sympathizers toward the perpetrator of abuse, who is an expert at deception and grooming, leaves children in harm's way. All the while, the abuse continues and victims multiply. 70% of abusers have more than one victim. 20% have between 10 and 40 victims. And if we think we're safe simply by staying at home, here's another statistic. 1 in 5 children are solicited sexually while on the internet. That is not a world that I grew up in, but that is the reality of the world we live in today. Child Impact has been empowering impoverished children through education for 57 years. We began as Asian Aid in Australia. They started a location in the United States that eventually became independent as Child Impact International. Individuals who once were orphaned, sponsored by Asian Aid, Child Impact. In Bangladesh, the leader of the largest sponsorship country program we have with 1,200 students, was once himself a sponsored orphan. Today he leads that organization. Principals of schools, teachers, individuals who did not have hope, did not have a bright future, but because someone said, I will sponsor that child, I will believe in them, I will have their back. I care about what's happening halfway around the world because everyone is God's child. Because someone believed in them, they had a chance. 10 years ago, Child Impact launched a new initiative called Operation Child Rescue. The focus was to fight human trafficking and protect the most vulnerable children globally. When I arrived at Child Impact 3 years ago, there were 3 projects in India fighting human trafficking. It was the right country to be in based on the statistics. I began to wonder, and I had an inclination. I wondered, what is the Adventist Church doing to make a difference in the fight against human trafficking? My hunch was practically nothing. So we did a survey of the world, of different projects, different organizations, and we identified a handful, less than 10, initiatives globally with an issue that affects 50 million individuals. This was unfathomable for me. And I believed with our team, even with 3 projects, that we were actually already leading in the fight against human trafficking within the Adventist Church. And so we began to focus in this area, to add new projects and to expand our reach. There have been some amazing doors that God has opened to us that have been absolutely transformational experiences for the individuals that are being rescued. And so today we have 20 projects in 12 countries where we are fighting human trafficking. I want to share with you about one of those projects, and I'll have an opportunity at 3 o'clock today to share with you about more of those projects, including our secret projects. This particular project we started in Colombia last year is called Weaving Dreams. 200,000 children in Colombia are sexually abused each year. Of those, 35,000 are involved in commercial sexual exploitation. Into this darkness, a rescue center is being established by our Child Impact team member, Delise, and has been funded by donors. The center opened in March of this year, but even before it opened, God began working some amazing miracles. It has already become a beacon of light. A person of influence in the area had a dream that the Adventists were coming to help. The local rebels, instead of creating a tense atmosphere of fear, danger, and intimidation, decided that it was their job specifically to protect Delise, our director, and also the entire project. The newly elected head of police, the gentleman on the left there in the green, is a Seventh-day Adventist. Inspired by Delisa's work, he got serious about cracking down on abuse and arrested 70 child abusers. That number has now climbed to close to 100. Needless to say, when our team visits Colombia, we are greeted by police and escorted to the project. We are protected the entire time we're there. Delisa's bold initiative and desire to protect children has attracted the attention of government leaders, and she has been asked to serve on an advisory council for the region and nationally. And this one's almost unbelievable, but it is true. The president of Colombia is aware of our project and has indicated an interest in visiting. In fact, it's serious enough that they say they need to pave the road all the way to the project so he can have a smooth ride the whole way there. I'd like for you to see this video from the grand opening. It's in Spanish, but it shows you the amount of support that is there from the local police force.
Para proteger a las niñas que son víctimas de abuso sexual en nuestro departamento.
Quiero agradecer a la Policía Nacional.
This is our director, Delise, that's speaking right there.
Porque ha hecho una transformación junto al.
Let's continue with our key verse. Let's read together the bolded words. Be careful. Don't think these little children are worth nothing. So I grew up going to the livestock auction on Highway 12 in Walla Walla. Did any of you ever go there? All right, Randy. We were there together, huh? You were there, the previous head elder. Yes, you were there as well. Wow, I enjoyed it. It took place on Wednesdays, and we went at least once a month, probably more. And I was fascinated by the auctioneer's chant, this unusual vocal cadence. In fact, I tried to imitate an auctioneer for this sermon, but it was an epic failure, so I'm not going to try to do that. The bidding was rapid and included some rather unique and subtle signals from buyers. You know, Randy, I learned that you have to be careful about scratching your nose or your ear or your head, because you just might end up buying a hog or a cow or a sheep or a goat. And so I would really just hold my hands tightly in my lap while I was enjoying the auction. So we raised goats, and they would sell at that time at the auction for about $50. Today, the average price for a goat at auction, I'm told, is around $200, unless it's a boar goat, and those go for a lot more as meat goats. But it was shocking for me to learn, and I have a photo here of the auction there on the right, the picture with me there. That is actually there's some corrals there still at the old auction grounds. They're off of Highway 12. So glad there's a fence between me and that bull. But I was shocked to learn that the average price of a human being, of a human slave today, is $90. And yet, as Adventists, we say we're people of the book. We believe in the prophecies in the books of Daniel and Revelation. And Revelation chapter 18 has several verses that begin this way. Merchants of the earth. And then there's a whole list of items that the merchants of the earth sell. And you get to the very last of that list, and this is what you read. Merchants of the earth sell the bodies and souls of men. This is yet another indicator of the times in which we're living. Let's read the bolded parts. Be careful, I tell you, that they have angels in heaven who are always with my Father in heaven. Be careful is from the Greek word harate, and it's an invitation to see with the mind's eye. Jesus wants us to visualize what is happening in heaven, and heaven is repeated twice to emphasize the location of these angels in proximity with God. The implication is that angels are making a report about how each child is being treated. This is a child abuse hotline directly to heaven. Friends, there is a superhighway of supernatural beings traveling at supersonic speed on super special missions. Despite evil forces that seek our demise, angels who excel in strength are constantly moving between heaven and earth on mission, directly commissioned from the throne room of God. These vulnerable children are of infinite value to God. This is further illustrated by Jesus as he inserts the story of one lost sheep, in this case, the lost lamb. If a man has 100 sheep but loses one sheep and he gets lost, will he leave the other 99 on the hill and go look for the lost sheep? I tell you the truth, if he finds it. Now this is kind of interesting here, because in Luke 15, where the same parable is told, it says when he finds it. But here it says if he finds it. Is it possible that the lamb could have been devoured by the wolves? Is it possible that the shepherd cannot come back rejoicing? But it says he's happier about the one sheep than about the 99 who were never lost. In the same way, your Father in heaven does not want any of these little children to be lost. God reduces the masses to one. With God, the one is never missed. God is always in pursuit of the one. I'd like to share the perspective of a new Child Impact team member by the name of Brian Ham. He was very successful with oil and gas. He heard me preach a sermon at his church, and he walked out and said, "This is what God is calling me to do." He now has joined our team, and he travels around preaching, not making the kind of money he used to make, but his heart overflowing with joy to be doing something to make a tangible difference in this fight against human trafficking. He traveled to the first project of Child Impacts that he ever went to Kigoma, Tanzania. This is a very short video, but it shares the experience that he had as soon as we stopped in the middle of town. This is his first experience with a Child Impact project.
So we landed in Kigoma, Tanzania, in the town center. We were immediately approached by a group of children who were begging. We had an opportunity to interact with some of these kids, and it became clear that these kids were really in a dire situation, especially this young girl. We found out that her name was Angel, and that she's 12 years old. I have my own children. The youngest is 13 years old, just 1 year older than Angel. And I immediately began thinking about my own family and what it would be like if this were one of my children out there on the streets. They mentioned that they sleep in the train station. I think from our perspective, as foreigners, as Americans, we didn't immediately understand what that meant until we made our way to the train station and saw that the train station is completely open air. There are also a tremendous amount of people around. And these kids go to sleep at the train station every night because they feel that they can sort of blend in. But it became so clear, whether it's exposure to the elements or, again, the tremendous amount of other people who are there, these kids are extremely vulnerable. This is not a safe place for them to be, sleeping in the open in a train station every night. So Angel, being the lone girl in this group of kids, the boys are protecting her. This group of boys, even as young as they are, understand how vulnerable she is. And the fact that it's now their responsibility as children to try and have to protect her from adults who might exploit her. This is just a shocking reality, something that we in our own country can barely imagine. Here in Kigoma, in the region of Kigoma, Child Impact works with and supports the Twing Memorial Schools. And as we met this group of kids and specifically thought about Angel, we knew that we had to do something. And so the first question that we asked was, can we find a place for her at the school? She shouldn't be out here on the streets. And as I thought about my own family and about what it would mean to me to know that if I weren't there, that there would be someone else to care for my children, I knew that for me personally, simply asking our local partner whether they could find her a place there wasn't enough, that I had to do something personally. And so at that moment, I agreed to sponsor Angel to get her to a safe place so that she's not out there on the streets, so that a group of children are not the ones that are having to protect her.
Yeah, Angel touched our hearts in a very deep way. Seeing that reminds me of this verse. In the same way, your Father in heaven does not want any of these little children to be lost. The day I met Angel, I cried 4 times, just describing her story to someone, just reflecting on the terrible circumstance that she finds herself in. And there's a lot more to the story. Her mom has a mental illness and locks her out of the house at night. All of her relatives Our partner there stopped by to visit the home. They were all drunk. Men have been approaching, trying to abuse her, and those little boys have been the ones trying to keep them away. We asked little boys, how long can you protect her for? And they said, we don't know. But now she's in a safe place. She's been rescued. She's getting healthy food to eat, and watching her fill up her plate with food, we asked her, can you eat all that? And her answer was yes. You see that piece of candy in the video? That was the only food she'd had that day. When we took the kids out for a meal, they said that was the first one that they'd had. Only one other time a compassionate lady had given them some food to eat, but they just barely survived, just on scraps. And to know that we could respond and do something in a tangible way is so rewarding. We can be overwhelmed to the point of inaction. And that's why I try to bring it down to one. It's the one that we can make a difference for. And if you make a difference for one and someone else makes a difference for another one, pretty soon it adds up. And many, many children can be blessed. Like Mary, a 14-year-old girl being solicited for prostitution by truck drivers. This is in Zambia. This is a screenshot of a video that our videographer was taking. She was reenacting selling vegetables out by the roadside. And in her reenactment, not part of the plan, a truck driver approached her and solicited her for prostitution. So our team just kept the camera rolling. But that's the reality, as she asked herself the question, can I be a sacrifice so my younger siblings can have a few more meals and they can survive? And so she gets paid $3 to $5 and they can survive for a few more days. 4 young girls. These are the first 4 girls that we've rescued from the largest brothel in Bangladesh, referred to some as the largest brothel in the world. In fact, if you type that into search, this brothel will come up, along with one in Germany. The one in Germany probably makes the most money. This one probably has the most prostitutes. Young girls, imagine growing up inside of a brothel. Dalit Dea is the name of it. Destined to become prostitutes themselves. We've rescued these 4 girls. We will rescue more. These are just the first 4. Uranus, a 15-year-old girl in an undisclosed country. I'll be sharing this afternoon which country that is. At 3 o'clock, if you're able to come back, I want to encourage you to do that. I love those sessions together because you can ask your questions as well and learn more about the work we're doing. But Uranus's father left her and the family, and the mother was killed by a suicide bomber. Her grandfather sells her body to make money. Uranus is desperate and hopeless. She wonders if life is worth living. In her words, she wishes a bright light will turn on in her life one day. What is God's desire? In the same way, your Father in heaven does not want any of these little children to be lost. Child Impact is on a seeking mission. In each of these cases I just shared and thousands more, the light has been switched on. There is hope for a brighter future, and that is thanks to our sponsors and donors. We have a couple of tables out in the foyer today with children who are anxious for somebody to believe in them. My wife and I sponsor 3 children. We would do more, except that we're also adopting children. And I'll share a little bit more this afternoon about our journey with adoption. This is our 2nd round of adopting 2 each round. When my wife and I got married, she said she wanted to have 10 children. I did not realize that that was something she actually meant. I was grateful to discover that she was not meaning all biological children and that we could adopt some of them partially raised already. But it has been a tremendous blessing to our family, and I'll share a little bit of our personal journey that way. But one of the girls that we sponsor is a girl that has been exposed to things I wish that she never had to be exposed to. She is from Zambia. We have built a dormitory there for 100 girls that have been rescued from human trafficking. that dormitory has been filled up. The girls have been sponsored. And I was laying out profiles on a table at a different church one day, and Mary's profile was put out on the table, and I immediately removed it, and I said, our family is going to sponsor that girl. She wrote a little profile for us as her sponsors, and in it she's asked, who are your heroes? She said, my auntie and my uncle, referring to me and my wife. When you sponsor a child, you become their support. They see you as their anchor, as their stability, even as, in a way, their parents, who may not be able to look after them in terms of their biological parents, but they have somebody who believes in them. In fact, one of our sponsors that's here today sponsors 8 children. And she came and looked at the table today and she said, I wish I could take all of them. She's already has a family of 8 that she's supporting. So praise God for that. And God may give you the ability to do that. We have a special opportunity to be involved not only in our sponsorship program, but also with rescue. We found most people like to do both, and so sponsorship for a day student is $32, and then we add $18 to help with our rescue projects of children that we can't put into our sponsorship program with these projects that I've shared with you about. All of the children in Colombia, I should say none of them, are in our sponsorship program. They're sponsored through our rescue project. So for $50, you can do both. And I look at that and say a slave today might only cost $90. But for $50 a month, you can turn the light on for a child. I want to share the way that was done for one child as I wrap up. This is in page 6 of your magazine. By the way, the girls on the cover and in the center, this is definitely worth looking at. They're going to the same school that Angel was rescued and is now attending. These are Muslim girls. I'll share a short video this afternoon about them because that's not something we want to put out on the internet. But just an amazing experience there with these girls who are at risk for trafficking, who have been rescued as well. But Shoaib was born deaf in India, which is thought to be a curse from God. And so providentially, he was sponsored to attend Child Impact's deaf school, and his light was turned on. He excelled in school, continued his education, and today he is working at NASA level in the government in India. He has had the opportunity to greet the president of the country. So you think from a child who's born and doesn't have a bright future because he has a disability, he's thought to be a curse from God, now serving the country of India in this high office. It's just remarkable. I'll conclude with this. Considered to be one of the greatest movies of all time, Schindler's List has a poignant scene where Oskar Schindler is commended for his self-sacrifice in saving 1,098 Jews from extermination. Rather than accept the accolades, he repeats, I could have done more. I could have done more. Friends, now is the time to be all in. We are on planet Earth to make a difference for eternity. It is not to be comfortable. It's not to have a nice car or a nice home or a comfortable life or amazing food to eat. That is not what life is all about. We are here to make a difference for Jesus. I am here today because I want to give you an opportunity to tangibly make that difference, to turn the light on for a child, to sponsor at least one child. And some of you can do more. I brought many with me, many children that need sponsorship. And I want to invite you to stop by. I'd like to share with you their stories, the circumstances they find themselves in. Some are stateless. Some are refugees that have been relocated. Some of them are at risk for trafficking or child marriage. And into all of these situations, we want to speak hope. And you can be the person to deliver that hope. We have thousands of children waiting to join our program, but we need the ones that we already have committed to find a sponsor who will have their back and who will support them from halfway around the world. I believe what Jesus said when he says, those that welcome a child, welcome me. So let's do that today. Here are the answers to the quiz. What is meant by a large millstone? Turned by a donkey is the correct answer. Second question, who are the Dalits? Correct answer is all of the above. Don't you love it when teachers like Lauren Dickinson do that to you? Next one here. What is the main way traffickers trick young girls in developing countries? The correct answer on that one is C. I will share with you this afternoon the vulnerabilities to trafficking in North America, as well as the global vulnerabilities to trafficking. But this is the main approach that is used overseas. The fourth question here, last question, where is Child Impact's secret project? The question is actually phrased incorrectly. It should say secret projects because now we have two. And the correct answer is you can find out this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So let's bow our heads for an added word of prayer. I hope to meet all of you back at the tables as you bring light into someone's life. Dear Lord, you have called us to make a difference here in this broken world, to be a beacon of hope, to turn the light on for someone who's in darkness. Lord, I recognize that all of us have experienced living in a broken world and have pain. We've been damaged, we've been hurt, we've been broken. Lord, I want to pray that each one of us will choose to be part of the healing for someone's life. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you that we can share together today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right.
Hello, friend. My name is James Ash, and I want to personally thank you for watching our program today. If you would like to see more videos just like this, all you have to do is go to StatelineAdventMedia.org, and you can watch to your heart's content. And oh, by the way, don't forget to click the like, share, and subscribe buttons on each one of our various platforms. Because you see, my friend, this helps us reach more people with the good news of Jesus' soon return. Ministries like this require large teams of people. You would be amazed if you were to see how many people are required to produce each one of our programs. And if you would like to join with us by becoming a ministry partner, you can actually help us reach the unreached with the gospel. All you have to do is go to StatelineAdventMedia.org/donate, and you can give us a much-needed boost. Most importantly of all, friend, we need your prayers. I assure you that the devil does not like this ministry, and your prayers are what protect and direct what we do here. Once again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.